Welcome back to the Ancestral Findings podcast. Christmas in the United States is often described as familiar: twinkling lights, evergreen trees, stockings hung by the mantel, gifts wrapped in glossy paper, and Santa Claus smiling from every corner of commerce. Yet beneath these recognizable images lies a far older, stranger, and far more diverse story, one stitched together over centuries by immigrants, enslaved peoples, indigenous nations, settlers, soldiers, missionaries, and merchants. American Christmas is not one tradition but hundreds, layered like sediment, each describing a different ancestor's hope, longing, belief, and memory. The United States has a reputation for materialism at Christmastime. It is a reputation earned through decades of marketing, consumer culture, and the economic engine that grew around the holiday after the 19th century. But the heart of American Christmas, in its origins, is not shopping. It is the ancient story of Bethlehem. And even more than that, it is the story of how families, your ancestors and mine, carried their own customs across oceans and over borders, blending them into the uniquely American mosaic. This first entry sets the stage for the rest of the series. We begin not because the United States invented Christmas, it didn't, nor because its customs are the most ancient, they aren't, but because its holiday practices reflect what happens when countless traditions collide. In this way, to understand American Christmas is to understand how Christmas transforms whenever it migrates. That's the genealogical key. Christmas is a cultural fingerprint. It reveals where a family came from, what it valued, and how it adapted. For the genealogist, American Christmas is a treasure map. Gifts, songs, recipes, decor, and even the date a family opened presents can hint at ethnic origins. And as we go country by country this month, you'll see how the United States absorbed practices from almost every place we explore. But before we wander outward, we begin at home. In a land where Christmas was once banned, later revived, commercialized, sanctified, reinvented, and constantly reborn through the eyes of new arrivals. It may surprise many readers that early American colonists did not universally celebrate Christmas. In fact, in several colonies, Christmas was outlawed. The Puritans of New England viewed it as a dangerous, unbiblical festival. They opposed drunken revelry, pagan customs, and anything resembling the Catholic feast days they rejected. For them, Scripture did not command celebrating Christ's birth, and therefore to celebrate was to invent a human tradition rather than obey divine law. From 1659 to 1681, Massachusetts even issued fines for anyone caught observing Christmas. Meanwhile, in southern colonies, Virginia, Maryland, and the Carolinas, Christmas was embraced with feasting, dancing, religious services, and balls. Anglican and Catholic families brought Old World customs across the Atlantic, and enslaved Africans, forcibly transported, added their own spiritual and communal traditions, which would grow into new forms of worship, song, and celebration. The result was already a fragmented holiday, determined not by national identity, but by ancestral background. From the very beginning, Christmas in America was genealogical. By the early 1800s, immigrants were shaping the young nation's holiday character. German families introduced the Christmas tree, a symbol that hit American soil long before it became a national standard. Hessian soldiers, Moravians in Pennsylvania, and German settlers throughout the Midwest treated decorated trees as familiar markers of home. They carved wooden ornaments, baked gingerbread in ornate shapes, and wove their theology into every branch. At the same time, Dutch communities in New York preserved the figure of Sinterklaas, a bishop in red robes who rode a white horse and delivered gifts on December 6th. His name, softened into English, became Santa Claus. Washington Irving's early 19th century tales helped push Sinterklaas into American literary culture. But it was later writers, artists, and advertisers who transformed him into a jolly, fur-clad traveler. This merging of cultures is what genealogists call a cultural palimpsest, old traditions faintly visible beneath new images. Santa Claus, as Americans know him, is a mosaic. Underneath the red suit, fur trim, and sleigh, we find Sinterklaas, the Dutch bishop. St. Nicholas of Myra, a 4th century Christian saint. German gift-bringers, such as the Christkind. British Father Christmas, a spirit of feasting and good cheer. Nordic winter spirits swirling in later folklore. The poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, 1823, often attributed to Clement Clarke Moore, introduced reindeer, the chimney entrance, and the magical twinkle that reshaped the legend. Illustrator Thomas Nast later added the North Pole workshop, elves, and the red suit. Only in the 1930s did Santa truly become the modern American icon, in part through commercial art that traveled coast to coast. To genealogists, this evolution is more than pop culture. It is evidence of how ancestors blended piety, imagination, and old country memory into new American life. Many families kept older traditions at home: a shoe by the door, a Saint's Day celebration, or a gift delivered not by Santa, but by the Christ child, long after the national image became unified. Although the United States grew a highly commercial Christmas, the biblical story remains the spiritual core for millions of families. Churches across the country hold Christmas Eve services filled with candlelight, scripture readings, and hymns that trace the Nativity, Mary and Joseph traveling to Bethlehem, the birth in the manger, angels proclaiming good news, the shepherds arriving first, the star leading the Magi, God entering the world in human form. Different Christian traditions emphasize different elements. Catholics and Orthodox Christians often build elaborate nativity scenes in their homes. Protestant denominations center Christmas Eve services, focusing on the incarnation as fulfillment of prophecy. African American churches, shaped by centuries of struggle and hope, have created distinct Christmas worship styles, blending scripture, spirituals, and community resilience. For genealogists, the style of worship an ancestor practiced can reveal their denomination, location, and sometimes the exact congregation they attended. Old church bulletins, membership rolls, and baptismal records often show Christmas season baptisms, choir performances, and seasonal events that bring your research closer to lived family life. While Santa dominates national imagery, the United States has many lesser-known Christmas figures. Kris Kringle, originally the Christkind, transformed through linguistic melting. The Three Kings, celebrated especially in Hispanic communities on Epiphany. The Befana, brought by Italian immigrants who kept Epiphany as La Festa della Befana. The Yule goat, preserved in some Scandinavian communities in the Midwest. Each of these hints at an ancestral story. A family that grew up with Three Kings Day likely has ties to Puerto Rico, Mexico, Spain, or other Spanish-speaking cultures. A Christmas goat in a grandmother's attic may trace back to Sweden or Finland. An Epiphany stocking suggests Italian heritage. Folklore becomes a genealogical clue. Indigenous nations had winter ceremonies long before missionaries introduced Christmas. These ceremonies often celebrated light, renewal, or midwinter gatherings. When Christianized, many communities blended biblical themes with traditional practices. This resulted in uniquely American forms of Christmas worship and storytelling that rarely appear in mainstream accounts. Enslaved African Americans developed Christmas traditions shaped by hope, sorrow, celebration, and resilience. Some enslaved people received a temporary break from labor. Others experienced cruelty masked behind holiday appearances. Yet spirituals, midnight worship, and gathering as community transformed the season into a time of profound meaning. After emancipation, black churches built Christmas programs emphasizing joy, community uplift, and the birth of liberation. These histories are essential for genealogical context, not simply to trace a line on a tree, but to understand an ancestor's world. The big shift came in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The holiday moved from scattered ethnic customs to a unified national celebration. Several forces converged. Urbanization. As cities grew, department stores used Christmas to attract customers, building window displays that shaped national imagery. Immigration. Millions arriving from Europe brought new customs, trees, carols, saints, markets, which blended with already existing ones. Literature and media. Stories like Dickens' A Christmas Carol influenced American values, magazines standardized holiday decor, songs traveled through radio and film. World War II. The war created a deep longing for home. Soldiers abroad and families at home embraced Christmas as a symbol of unity. After the war, the baby boom and suburban expansion solidified Christmas as a family-centered holiday. These forces turned Christmas into both a sacred feast and a cultural celebration, a duality uniquely American. For people researching family history, Christmas memories are sometimes more revealing than documents. Here are a few things to ask a relative. Did your family open gifts on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day? Eve often suggests German, Scandinavian, or Catholic roots. Did they celebrate Epiphany? That points to Hispanic, Italian, Greek, or Eastern Christian backgrounds. Was the gift giver Santa, Christkind, Three Kings, or someone else? Each figure carries ethnic clues. What foods were essential? Tamales, pierogi, 7 fishes, lefse panettone, fruitcake, each has a homeland. Did the family include religious rituals? Candlelight services, novenas, midnight mass? Orthodox vigils reveal denominational heritage. In this way, American Christmas is far less homogeneous than it appears. It is a cultural map waiting to be read. Christmas in the United States is a story written by millions of hands. It is the story of indigenous people encountering new traditions, enslaved people finding hope in spiritual strength, immigrants carrying fragile memories into a new land, children shaping the holiday through imagination, and families weaving together customs from faraway homelands. It is the story of Bethlehem retold in hundreds of accents, in thousands of ways. As we begin this 25-day journey, the United States serves as our reminder that Christmas is never static. It travels. It transforms. It adapts to new landscapes, new languages, and new lives. And through that transformation, it becomes a vessel of memory. Your ancestors celebrated Christmas in ways that revealed their fears, hopes, beliefs, and identities. Understanding those customs brings you closer to them, not just as names in a record, but as human beings who decorated trees, baked bread, prayed for peace, laughed with children, and told stories that are still echoing through your own traditions today. Tomorrow, we leave America and cross the ocean to meet the winter spirits of England, guardians of feasts, wassailers, storytellers, and early shapers of the holiday that shaped us in return. If you've got a hard-to-find ancestor you're stuck on, I'd love to hear about it. Just head over to ancestralfindings.com and click on Contact to send me a message. While you're there, take advantage of our free weekly genealogy lookups, explore thousands of articles, and enjoy hundreds of podcast episodes. We've been helping family history researchers since 1995. And if you're looking for even more, check out our Genealogy Gold Q&A series over on Patreon. Thanks for listening, and as always, happy searching.